Heists are the heart of GTA Online. They're how you make big money and have the most fun. And with there being over 20 different heists and contracts in the game, I'm going to rank every single one from worst to best based on both profit and gameplay. Starting with the prison break heist, which is going straight into the worst tier. The concept is great. Busting someone out of prison is a classic GTA style, and we definitely needed it in the game at some point. And it was one of the first OG heists. But in practice, it's more frustrating than fun. The payout is low, around $875,000, and since it requires 4 players, that means you're walking away with barely over 200k each. That might have been decent years ago, but in today's economy, that won't even get you most supercars. Beyond the weak payout, the structure is very outdated. If someone quits or disconnects mid-mission, which happens a lot, you're forced to start all over. Add in some tedious setups and a finale that relies on someone flying a plane or jet without crashing, and you've got a recipe for disaster. Unless you're running it with a solid squad, this heist is more of a headache than a payday. Cool idea, but it desperately needs a modern update. So until then, it is stuck in the worst tier. Next on the list, and this one might catch some of you off guard, is the Fleeca Job, which is going in the mid tier. Just hear me out. No, it's not in here because of the payout, at just $250,000 on hard mode, split between 2 players. This heist won't exactly fund anything that you want in the game, but the Fleeca Job earns its spot higher up on the list for a few key reasons. First off, it's quick and simple. With only 2 setup missions and the finale that takes under 30 minutes to finish, it's one of the fastest heists in the game. You only need 1 other player, so there's no hunting down a full squad. Overall, it's the nostalgia. This was the very first heist added back in 2015, and for players who were around back then, it hits a little differently 10 years later with every other moneymaker and heist added to the game since then. The final getaway, hooking onto a massive cargo bob, is still one of the coolest escapes in the game. It may not be a moneymaker, but for what it is, the Fleeca Job deserves its spot where it is in the list. Next up is the Doomsday Act 3. Also known as the Doomsday Scenario, which takes the good spot. On paper, this one should be near the top. The finale is packed with intense action, a surprisingly entertaining story, and a pretty wild jetpack escape to cap it all off. You can run it with just 2 players, and on hard mode, it pays out up to $2.25 million, which sounds great until you realise what it takes to get there. The biggest issue is the sheer length. Between the long setups, tough missions, and a finale that can stretch close to 1 hour, depending on how smooth your run is, you're looking at a 2 to 3 hour commitment for the whole heist. And while some players might enjoy the high difficulty and intense moments, like stealth helicopters, invisible juggernauts, and storming through a secret Mount Chiliad bunker, most people aren't loading up GTA for that kind of grind. It's definitely a fun heist that delivers a lot of bang for your buck, but the steep investment and low replay value hold it back from ranking any further on this list. Cool experience, definitely. Worth repeating over and over? Not really. Coming in next is the Contract. Yep, the one with Dr. Dre, which of course goes in the best spot. And honestly, this is one of the most enjoyable pieces of content that has ever been added to this game. To access it, you will need to own an agency, but once you're in, the missions are solid across the board. The Contract is split into 3 main mission arcs: Nightlife League, High Society League, and South Central League, which each divide into different areas of Los Santos. That mission variety alone makes it stand out from a lot of the more repetitive heists in this game. The final payout is a flat $1 million, and most players can finish this in around 90 minutes to 2 hours, putting your profit per hour somewhere in the 500 to 600k range, which isn't bad at all. Where it loses a few points though is the unskippable cutscenes. The first time watching Dr. Dre drop some bars in the studio was a pretty good experience to say the least, but on the 20th replay of this heist, yeah, not so much. If Rockstar ever lets us skip those, this would easily be the all-time best heist in the game, but all in all, it lands comfortably in the best tier. And next in the best spot you guessed it, the Cayo Perico heist. I was tied into putting this into the good tier simply because of how this heist changed the meta of GTA Online and how grinding works as a whole, but that's a topic for another video. I mean, even Rockstar is sick of this heist, not just the grinders, because they have made many attempts to nerf it. But let's not deny it, it's still hands down the most efficient and easiest way to make money in this game. The biggest reason, you can do it completely solo. No need to split the payout, no waiting around for teammates, and no dealing with randoms. Just you, the island, and a bag full of loot. Even after the payout reduction, every solo run will still earn over $1 million. And if you're efficient, you can get through the entire thing, setups and finale, in under an hour. Beyond the money making though, Cayo Perico also brought something to GTA Online that had never been seen before, a full-blown new island. Unlike other heists that took place in a couple rooms or floors of an existing building, this update gave us an entirely new location, full of unique approaches and options. Want to sneak in quietly? You can. Prefer to go in loud? That works too. Steal a guard's vehicle, parachute onto the island, swim in from the coast, the freedom is unmatched. And yes, the solo cooldown is a bit of a drag, around 2.5 hours between runs, but honestly, if you're logging in once per day, it's still a guaranteed million per hour. Between the payout and the freedom, very fast setups, and strong replayability, Cayo Perico easily earned its spot in the best tier, and I don't think that's ever going to change. Next, we've got the Oscar Guzman Flies Again missions, which are landing in the best tier. These are a solid batch of mini heists that really brought some life back to the aerial gameplay in GTA Online. The mission structure gives you that classic GTA chaos mixed with some very cool variety, from flying aircraft, defending cargo, and even dealing with cool set pieces like shark infested waters. Playing solo is totally viable as well, it's very easy to do. That said, it isn't all smooth sailing because some of the prep missions can really drag when you're playing solo, and searching for certain objectives turns into a bit of a slog. The finale, while visually cool, can also overstay its welcome. It's basically just 5 minutes of unloading bullets into a flying tank. Not bad, but it's not exactly that engaging either. And with a final payout of 750k on hard mode for just under 1 hour of work, it's actually pretty decent. Overall though, this is a surprisingly well-rounded experience that feels like Rockstar actually paid attention to both solo and co-op playstyles. It's fun, and it's a polished side hustle that breathes some much needed life into GTA's heist style missions. So for those reasons, I feel like it definitely deserves its spot in the best tier. Next up are the FIB Files, which I'm putting into the good tier. And yes, I will count these as heists. These offer decent pay and a few quality of life improvements. First off, the lack of cooldown on most missions, except for the priority files. This is a huge win in my opinion. Rockstar also made it easier by allowing you to start these missions directly from your phone, which saves a lot of players some time. The missions themselves are fun, quick, and they feature optional objectives that make them more engaging without being too time consuming. On the downside though, there's not much new to explore. A lot of the robbery locations are just repurposed from older updates. For example, the finale of the fan art project is just your agency with the lights off, and the brute force file takes place in the same bunker from the Doomsday Heist, but it is cool to see it return. This reusing of old interiors makes the missions feel more like new spins on familiar content rather than offering something truly innovative. The mission structure also remains the same as it's been for years now, 3 setup missions and then a finale. And while it's not necessarily bad, it does feel a bit stale after all this time. However, they are pretty fun, and for about 30 minutes of work, you get 200k per file, which realistically means you can make 400k per hour from these heists. But remember, we aren't just ranking them on their payouts. In conclusion, the FIB files are decent, but they don't really push the envelope much. But it's more of the same really, which for long-time players can feel a bit repetitive. So I feel I've gone easy on these by putting them in the good tier. Next up we have the Chop Shop robberies, which are sadly going in the mid tier. But allow me to explain. So these feature 5 different heists, each with its own mix of fun and frustration. While some missions are enjoyable, others, like the McToney robbery, can be pretty annoying. The payouts vary depending on the vehicle that you need to steal, but most of these robberies pay between 250 to 400k, and you can complete them in about 45 minutes. In terms of ranking though, why have I put them in the mid tier? Well, the biggest downside to these robberies is the limited availability, because you can only complete 3 of them once per week. This means you have to play all 3 missions for 5 consecutive weeks just to make back the over $5 million investment if you fully upgraded the salvage yard. This restriction significantly limits the earnings that you can make from these heists, making it a much slower grind than other activities in the game. So overall they're decent but not groundbreaking, and I feel like they deserve their spot in the mid tier. Next up, we've got the Autoshop contracts, which take the good spot on this list. There are 7 in total, each offering a slightly different take on the same mission structure. Ranking them from best to worst, we'll start with the data contract, which involves defending RV Sportsman. Never done that before, right? Followed by the agency deal, which sends you into an IAA agency. Then there's the Super Dollar deal, where you'll break into an MLC cab. And next I'll put the prison break contract, yes, another prison break, and then the lost contract, which takes you across the map blowing up motorcycle club labs. And then I'll put the ECU job, where you infiltrate a train, and finally I may as well rank the best one as the bank contract, which has you robbing 5 banks across Los Santos. All of these can be done solo, and you should be able to finish them in 30 minutes or less. The payout for the leader is roughly just over 160k for all contracts, making these the lowest paying missions so far on this list. However, the efficiency of these contracts is where they shine. They can be completed quickly and solo, meaning the profit is all yours. If you're looking for fast, reliable money, then these are definitely worth doing at least once. Think of them as mini heists pretty much, with 2 setups and the finale. Now you may have noticed that I purposely missed one of the contracts, because when it comes to the Union Depository contract, it's the standout out of the bunch. Like the others, it will have 2 setup missions plus the finale, but unlike the others, it pays 300k, nearly double the other robberies. This is the only contract where you actually break into a major bank. It's like reliving the final heist from story mode, which adds a bit more flair to the experience. While the total payout isn't high compared to other heists, in terms of money per hour, this contract gives you a massive bang for your buck. And it's one of the main reasons why I put the Autoshop contracts in such a higher tier than I would have. But next up is Series A funding, which is going in the worst tier. This is another one of the OG heists, and it stands out mainly because of Trevor's involvement. The concept is cool, gathering different drugs, shipping them across the city and selling them. The payout is also not that great at just 400k, which is disappointing, especially when split between 4 players. The finale is where this one falls short, as it boils down to just driving 2 trucks across the map. When this heist dropped in 2015, it was fresh, but now, with literally every activity in this game requiring us to drive across the map, yeah, it just feels repetitive and dull. Despite this, I think it's only a decent heist simply because of the story with Trevor, which adds a bit more depth to it. Moving on though, we have the Diamond Casino heist, and of course, it's going in the best spot. This is a must-play heist in the game. It's an exciting heist with great payouts, and depending on what's in the vault, you can make anywhere from 2 million to over 3.6 million if you get diamonds. While the heist is fun and the concept of robbing a casino is amazing, it's not a solo activity, which does hold it back for some players. However, you don't need 4 players, you can just complete it with 2. And one of the best features is the ability to complete setups in free roam, making use of fast vehicles to get them done quickly. In terms of profit, you can typically earn around $1.5 to $1.7 million, split between 2 players. And the whole heist should take about 90 minutes from start to finish. So all in all, it offers great profit for the time spent. The Diamond Casino heist also introduced a new level of freedom with 3 approaches: aggressive, silent and sneaky, and big con. In last place, I'm going to rank aggressive because it can result in a lower payout if you get shot. And it is a fun concept, but I don't think I've ever liked going in loud with the casino. Between silent and sneaky and the big con, both allow for stealth, meaning you won't lose money during the heist. But personally, I find the big con, the group sex approach, the easiest, which places it just ahead of Silent and Sneaky. But overall, both are really great options, and Silent and Sneaky offers a more traditional stealth experience. It's one of my personal favourites. Moving back to the Doomsday Heist, next up is the Doomsday Act 1 Data Breaches, which takes the mid spot. This heist pays over $1.2 million on hard mode, which is less than other heists, but it earns a higher spot due to its flexibility. You can complete it with just 2 players, keeping a bigger cut for yourself, though you can have up to 4 players if preferred. The heist itself is action packed and exciting, especially when flying the Luxors to take down a massive plane. However, the downside is the amount of setups, just like every Doomsday heist. Because in addition to the prep missions, you obviously need to complete the setup missions before reaching the finale, which makes this a time-consuming heist to say the least. Overall, it is fun though, and profitable, but it just requires a bit of patience. Next up, we have the Cluckin Bell farm raid, which definitely deserves its spot in the best. It's a solid money-making opportunity. The raid will involve us breaking into the Cluckin Bell farm at the top of the map to steal from the cartel, which is actually super fun to do. It offers a payout of $500,000, which, while not huge, is decent, especially considering it can be done solo. What's really underrated about this heist is that no existing property is required, meaning even new players can jump straight into it, which is exactly why I've put it in the best spot. It's the best way for beginners to make money in this game. For more experienced players, it takes about 45 minutes to an hour to complete, which makes it a pretty good payout for the time spent. And while it may not compare to bigger heists in the game, it's still pretty solid, and the missions themselves are really fun. So overall, this is a great heist that's definitely worth doing, especially for new players. And that brings me on to the Pacific Standard Heist, which takes the mid spot. It was the biggest heist in GTA Online for years, because it was one of the only heists in the game, and it is still a lot of fun. Breaking into a massive vault at the bank with friends is an awesome experience, and the payout of $1.8 million makes it one of the highest original paying heists when split among 4 players, which is decent, especially for low level players with a group. But overall, it's not something I'd recommend for everyone. What made the Pacific Standard Heist stand out was the feeling of actually pulling off a heist. Everyone had their specific role, and you're actually robbing a massive bank. The final sequence where you escape the cops on bikes, jumping mid-air, parachuting into a boat, and then escaping to the sea was an unforgettable highlight, and truly felt like the peak of heist action back in 2015. So I believe it deserves its spot in mid. And for the final OG heist on this list, we have the Humane Labs raid, which takes the worst spot. It pays $1.2 million on hard mode, which is a decent step up from the previous OG heists, but what I like about this one is the 2 distinct approaches for the finale. One team defends outside in the helicopter, which can be a bit dull, while the other infiltrates the labs. This variety adds a more interesting twist to the heist itself. However, like the rest of the OG heists, it suffers from the same issues before. If someone disconnects, you'll have to restart, which is a huge pain. And while the payout is better and the role flexibility is nice, the core issues still drag it down. But overall, it is a solid heist, not quite on par with the rest, which is why I believe it deserves its spot in the worst spot. Which brings me on to the final heist for this list, and that is the Doomsday Act 2, the Bogdan Problem, finishing this list in the good spot. It pays $1.78 million on hard mode, just slightly less than Act 3, however, it's much quicker to complete, meaning you'll earn more money per hour with this one. The fun factor is also much higher too, as you're breaking into an underground submarine using submersible cars, a really cool concept that adds a lot of excitement to this finale. You can also complete this heist with just 2 players, meaning both of you can earn nearly $1 million each. And while the heist is entertaining and action-packed, it still suffers from the usual issues of requiring multiple prep and setup missions before the finale. Despite that though, it's fast-paced and it's a thrill of underwater driving, which makes it one of my personal favourites out of the 3 Doomsday heists. And that wraps up my final tier list of all the heists in the game. You guys will definitely not agree with this, and that's totally fine. So I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say in the comments below. Definitely get some conversations going there. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more and drop a like on it while you're at it. And why not check out another ranking video on every business in this game, which is on screen now. And I'll see you in the next one.